All righty. Welcome, everybody. My name's Misty, and I'm super excited to be here. And a little bit about what we want to share with you today. So before I introduce my fabulous mother to my side, this whole call is just basically the ins and outs and what's up with the Akashic Records. What are the Akashic Records? So this has been something that has been on my mind for a while because I heard initially Akashic Records many years ago and knew a little bit about it, but didn't really understand it. And I kind of had an idea of what it was, but not really. And since then I've had now a couple Akashic readings, really, wow, mind bending, but I still don't fully understand what they are and how they work and what it's all about. So we're lucky we get to have my mom. This is Wendy Cicchetti. She is a world-renowned astrologer, color, Reiki, you name it, my mom does it, tarot, and she's now pretty deep dive into the Akashic Records. And so have invited her here to share with us and to answer some questions to kind of help maybe you and I a little bit more in understanding about what the Akashic Records are. So first and foremost, this is my mother, Wendy. Welcome.
Thank you, Misty.
Awesome. So can you start number one, kind of twofold, is number one, what are the Akashic Records? But I also think it's kind of interesting how you came across, how it came into your life.
Well, I'd heard about it too. You know, you hear little bits here and little bits there, and you think, oh, that sounds interesting. But one of the original people that helped take the records and the protocols associated with accessing the records, this woman, Ruth Wessels is her name, and she lives here in this little town that I live in New Mexico called Belen. And she has a little place called The Porch. And of course, I didn't know really any of this. And I would go to The Porch. She does massage and reflexology. And there are a bunch of us older women who'd get together with her. And one day she said, would you guys like to learn how to do the Akashic Records? And I'm like, sure. I didn't know what I was getting into. I thought, well, sure. Boy, have I learned a lot. I will tell you that. And one of the most interesting things about it was that kind of blew my mind. You know, I studied formally 8.5 years astrology, you know, to learn how to speak intelligently about astrology. And with just a lesson or two with the Akashic Records, I'm getting information. I'm like astonished. Whoa. And I was working with this little lady. We were working with each other, and we were supposed to, you know, give the other person a reading. And when I opened, you know, her records and I gave her the reading, I spoke of things. Then all of a sudden tears started streaming down her face. And you know, one of the things that came to my mind is you've got to cut down on eating meat, you know, and I'm a meat eater, so that was unusual. You've got to cut down on eating meat. It's not good for you right now. And the other thing that came to me out of the blue was a scripture called "Be still and know that I am God." And I said, this keeps coming to me. And, you know, she's just weeping and saying how impactful these things were to her and how that scripture has meant so much to her in her life. And, oh my gosh, she had been thinking that she needed to cut down on the meat and, you know, stuff like that. And I'm just astonished that in one session that I'm getting information after I spent 8.5 years studying astrology. But with the Akashic, I was getting information very rapidly. And so as I started working with it and practicing with it, I realized that it was something that I could offer my astrology clients who are really in depth, wanting to be in touch with their spirituality, who they really are. And so that's when I started teaching with Ruth's consent, and she tutored me a lot in how to teach. She traveled with Mary Parker, and they taught it literally all over the world. So what are the records? Well, the records are the history of our souls from its inception until forever, because we'll die here, but we're going to come back somewhere else. So day by day, our thoughts and actions are being recorded. Now, the Bible talks about it as the book of life. Okay. But many other cultures have accessed the Akashic records, talks about it, the Mayans, the Tibetans, the Buddhists, you can go on and on about those. Nostradamus. Edgar Cayce is probably the most publicized American healer who healed people through the Akashic records. So you can go in and you can see the person doing it can see what's going on with their soul physically, what ailments have they taken from lifetime to lifetime, what's causing it. I had my first reading from Ruth. I would go to her for massage, and one day she says, I asked her, I said, why is it that I get so anxious when I'm hungry? I said, I get really, really anxious, and I don't understand why. And she said, well, maybe this is what we ought to ask the Akashic records. So she said, next week when you come in, I'll have some answers for you. And so I go in, and she says, oh, the video's been playing in my head all morning. I said, okay. And she said, here's the deal. You were a nursemaid to an Egyptian princess. She was very young. She was pregnant, and it was your job to take care of her through the birth of the child. And so I took care of her every need. Well, she, went into premature labor. She died, and the baby died. And so for the burial for this princess, these big burial rooms, I was to go into that chamber and to help with their transition into the new world. Well, nobody told me that I was going to starve to death, that I was going to, that there was nothing for me to eat or drink. And I went through the most excruciating, painful death of thirst and starvation that you could imagine, railing at God. Here, I'm supposed to be doing what God wants me to do, and look what's happening to me. And that was something that was so traumatic in my past that I had carried it from lifetime to lifetime. And I thought, wow, that really makes sense, doesn't it? And so the Akashic records can give you the information of why things go on with you, what's going on with your health, what's going on with your past lives. Who were you in a past life? One of the questions I wanted to ask was, I've always known I was a nun. And I asked, was I a nun, and who was I? And so I got all this information of me as a nun. And it's so interesting because it speaks oftentimes in a language that is not consistent with who I am. These are words or phrases that I would never use, that come up. And one of the things that came up with me being a nun was that, I was aged and old, and I helped a lot of people, but I made accommodations for pain, which I do in this life, and I ate only fruit. And I thought that was really interesting, that we can get that specific of information, that's just part of it. In having a relationship, like I work a lot with Debbie Ford's book, Your Holiness, in my Akashic classes. But I was always very connected to her once I got the book, and I went, whoa. So I asked the Akashic records, I said, did we know each other? And it was yes, we were sisters in a past life. And even then, at that time, she was involved in the work that she did in this life, and that I promised her I would help her in the next life. So you get all kinds of information like that. That is very, very helpful. That helps you understand what's literally going on in your life. And you can go deeper and deeper and further and further. The great healers, have used it for eons of time. The Akashic field, it's not like it's necessarily a place. The Akashic energy is all around us. It's just basically tapping into it. It's not like it's in a building somewhere, you know. No, but on the etheric level, everything is being recorded for every soul that has been born
Yeah.
in.
Well, it's information in the field. Like it's
And one of my favorite mentors and teachers that I found here in the last 6, 7 months is a fellow by the name of Lars Mule. Love this guy. He's from Denmark, and he very interesting life. He's a Scorpio, very deep guy. And when his sister was 6 years old, she died of a brain tumor, and he was about 10, and it just totally flipped him. And he started being able to hear what the adults were thinking and then see the discrepancy with what they said and what they did, and it just totally freaked him out. He had to quit school. He couldn't go back to school for like 3 years. He went into counseling and, did a lot of writing, just trying to stay sane. And then he went into studying. When he was 15, somebody sent him a Sufi book in the mail. He doesn't understand where it comes, a Rumi thing. And it said, if you will reach up to us, we will come down and lift you up. And that changed the course of his life. And so he started studying comparative religions and everything at the age of 15. And he studied all the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Nag Hammadi scrolls, the Aramaic language, every single scroll, papyrus that he could get his hands on, he studied. And he's a wealth of information. And why this is relevant is that back in the late 90s, he became very ill. He's my age, okay? And he was sick in bed basically for 3 years. He was in so much pain and nobody could give him a diagnosis. He didn't know why. He was sick, and he'd been involved in the music industry, and he was supposed to be on this board of musicians and songwriters. And finally, one of his female contemporaries called him and said, Lars, where have you been? Why haven't you been coming to our meetings? And he says, well, I've been sick. And she said, well, why didn't you tell us? He said, because I thought people would think I was crazy because I didn't have a diagnosis. And so she said, well, if you'd have told me, I could have given you this number of the man who I know could heal you. He's called the seer. And so she gave him the number. He called the seer, and the seer healed him in 5 minutes. And he said, the seer told him, he said, meet me in 6 months at the Mount Montesquieu in France, and let's do some work together. And so he felt some weird stuff going on in his neck. He went to sleep for 2 hours and it was completely gone from there on. And so he met the seer and became his apprentice. And the seer was a very, very unique individual. And he healed thousands of people through the Akashic Records. Now, I didn't know this when I first found Lars and started listening to him. I had no idea of the involvement with the Akashic Records. And so as I'm reading more and more of his stuff, I'm just blown away about the information. I want to read you some of this book. It's called The Wisdom of the Broken Heart. I recommend it to everyone. It is a phenomenal book, but he says here, the Akashic is the womb or sphere in the kingdom of heaven from whence everything we are able to experience with our senses emanates, and to where those things will once again return. He said, Akasha is eternity's memory, containing everything that happens and everything that has ever happened, an endless archive in which mankind's thoughts, words, actions, and experiences are all recorded. That's kind of mind-blowing, isn't it? And so that's basically what they are.
So the big question is, how do we access them?
Well,
like, it sounds great. It's like, okay, all this information is right there, and it's these records that is everything that we've thought, done, and everything. Now, how does a person like layperson how do we access them?
One of the reasons that Edgar Casey was able to access the records was he did it in a trance state. He would go into, like he was asleep, into a trance, and he could access the records that way. Back then, we'd been through World War II. He died in the 40s. He was born in the late 1800s. And so we were very ensconced in the third dimensional reality, right? But now the frequency of the planet is lifting the higher frequency energies, which make it more available to all of us, because the realm of the Akashic is very high frequency. Okay. Now, what actually happened, and I don't have the exact dates, I do have them written down, but I don't have them now. There was this fellow by the name of Johnny P, and I know that his last name, but it's Polish, and I can't pronounce it. He had been having dreams about meeting this Mayan woman that had information for him. And, it had gone on for 2 or 3 years, and finally he was in Mexico, and he missed a flight. And so he just went out walking in the streets, and guess who he ran into? The Mayan woman of his dreams, that had come in his dreams, that told him that she had information for him, and she took him on this journey and gave him all of the information on how to access the records, the prayers associated with accessing the records. And he really didn't know what to do with it. He got back to this, to where he was living, and he didn't know what to do. I think he was living in the States at the time. And so he finally just started gathering groups of people and giving them the information. He met, one of his first students was Mary Parker. She's the one that Ruth worked with. And they developed, he shared the protocol, and that's what they were teaching people how to open the records. Now, so when you take a class, you are given those protocols. Okay, what are the prayers? What is the process of opening the records? And it's actually a lot of fun. A lot of people think, oh, this is really heavy. Oh my gosh, I have to be able to do this. And I say, lighten up. This is fun.
You don't need any special ability. You don't have to think that you're like, it's just, if this is protocols and ways for just any of us that might be interested in doing it. So there is we could also get a reading from someone like yourself that does Akashic readings.
Right.
But like what we've found, and what I believe too, is it's like the most powerful thing is to learn it for yourself.
Exactly.
And then you can access it whenever you want and have that. So you said, you had told me that you are going to be offering a class soon, so that we can learn how to do this. Can you tell us about the class and what that looks like? And
okay. Well, when I offer a class, it's actually 3 classes, and they're all a month apart. And in the beginning class, I teach all of the prayers, the protocols, the self-protection, all of that stuff. And then I give you homework assignments, practices that you do for the next month. And then we come together again. We share what we got. We share, what our questions are. I usually will always, before each class, I will do an Akashic reading for the class and ask for what information that I should be sharing with them. Let me share one of those with you from my last class. This I felt was very, very interesting. Here it is. I keep a little book here that has all of my my practice in it. And so this was the one that came through from before my last class 2 weeks ago. And it said, open up your hearts to truth and this beautiful realm of the Akashic. There is more to learn than you now know. This is the time for depth of understanding and personal development. You are at the forefront of the evolution necessary at this time on Earth. You are of great value to Source, as all the light that you are is radiating outward and blessing the lives of so many. Stay vigilant in your study and practice. It is preparing you for what is to come and will set you apart and be useful to Source. You are part of the ones chosen to lead the way for others that will be coming in droves for help in understanding the truth. Blessings to you all. Awesome, isn't it? To get
Beautiful.
that.
Yeah.
See? So it just gives us a depth of understanding and information that can really bless the lives of each of us. And frankly, I think, and especially after reading Lars Mule's books, and I've read all of them, and I recommend him. In fact, one of the ones that I loved where I first heard him was Gateways and Passwords to Heaven, his video on YouTube. But all of his books refer to the Akashic and so forth. But the thing that keeps coming to the fore is hooking into the Akashic Records is one of the most important things that we do right now on the planet.
Why?
As part of our spiritual development, as part of our understanding, as part of getting the truth we need when there is so much manipulation, lies, falsehoods, and all of that we're dealing with. We can go into the records and get the information that we need very quickly, very easily by connecting to that frequency.
Yeah. Well, this is something I'm really excited about. So I'm going to be in the next class. So anyone that wants to join me in the next class, what information how do they register? Is there a website, or what's the best way to?
They just go onto my site, my website, which is twixtearthandsky.com, and that will be at the bottom of the video. And click on the payments page, which is up on the right hand side, and then you'll see where you can sign up for it. And they are on sale still. I was charging $750 for the series of classes, and I'm just charging $500 because I want to make it easy for people to access this. I want to see people growing, learning, developing, evolving, and this is one of the fastest way for people to do it.
Well, yeah, because I'm all about give me the tools, give me these, practices and tools that I can put into place to assist myself.
Right.
And if you're one of those like me, this is another great tool to have in your arsenal of practices. Yeah.
Now, and some of my students, once they open them, they just become, it's just like everything just starts flowing out of them. Just like, oh my God. I have one gal from China who, when she learned how to do the records, she just started getting volumes of her past lives in China, from the clothes that she wear to the colors to what was going on in society, just flowed out of her.
Wow.
Some people just immediately just get volumes. I was not one of those people. It takes me a while, and it always has, as a quadruple Taurus, it takes me a while to get in the groove, just like 8.5 years learning astrology. Some people might have gotten it in 6, I don't know. But what I am is very tenacious, and I work with it until I get it. Until I'm
Yes, I can attest to that. My mother doesn't stop something till she masters it. Yes. And I've seen that with everything that she puts her hands on. So it's always impressive. That's why I love to learn from her, because I know that she's done the homework. Yeah. And knows what she's talking about. So anything else you want to say, Mom?
Well, yeah, some people, like your friend Garnet, who is one of my students, he gets pictures. He doesn't get words. He gets visuals. And some people get the visuals. Okay. But I get words. I get streams of words. So everybody's physiology is a little bit different, and we all might get the information in a different way, but we're still getting it.
Yep.
So.
Well, this is awesome. Well, I actually have had a reading from one of your students, which is interesting, because it also, like, once you have access to it, you can also ask permission to read for other people. Is that correct?
Yes. Right. Well, that's level 2. The first level is level 1, where you learn to read for yourself. And when you feel you've mastered that, then you can move on to level 2 and learn how to read for other people.
Oh, wow.
But
So
they're
that's
a
awesome.
different set of protocols.
Yeah, cool. So you guys, if you're interested in that, go to our website. I'll see you there. I'm going to be there. And hopefully you learned a little bit about what the Akashic Records are and what you need to do to access them. And hopefully we will see you in a training. Or if you just also want a reading, you can contact Wendy as well. She can also give you a reading just as an Akashic reading if you would like that. But anyways, thanks, Mom. Thanks for the information. That was super awesome. We know a little bit more. All right, everybody. Have a great one.
Bye.